The Austrian officers sneered as the Italian Alpini marched into view, their green feathered hats bobbing in the sunlight, rifles slung over their shoulders. Whispers carried across the jagged ridges, mocking their small stature, their seemingly fragile uniforms, and the amateurish precision of their drills. To the Austrians, these mountain soldiers were nothing more than a curious sideshow destined to be swept aside by the rigor and discipline of the Habsburg army. Yet there was a subtle defiance in the Alpini's steady steps, a quiet confidence that drew the eye even as the laughter echoed. Each crackle of leather boots against stone seemed to pulse with a heartbeat, a rhythm of understated courage that the Austrians failed to notice. Clouds swirled in the valleys below, mist curling like whispers around their ankles, hiding the treacherous cliffs they would one day traverse. It was easy for outsiders to mock what they could not yet comprehend. The Alpini moved with a deliberate care born of necessity, not showmanship. And in that care lay the first hint of an overlooked potential, a strength measured not in size but in endurance. The mountains themselves seemed to watch silently, as if aware that these underestimated figures carried a resilience far deeper than any mockery could reach. Even in this early moment, the seeds of doubt began to take root, quietly unsettling those who judged too quickly, while inviting viewers to wonder. What could such underestimated men accomplish when the world itself turned against them? Every day for the Alpini began before the sun broke fully over the jagged horizon. Frost clung to their boots as they tramped up narrow passes, breath pluming in the crisp mountain air. Rations were simple, often nothing more than hard bread and cold coffee, yet each meal was savored with an almost ritual precision. They trained relentlessly, scaling sheer cliffs and navigating hidden trails that twisted through ice-laden gullies, honing muscles that a city-bound soldier could scarcely imagine. The wind was both constant companion and silent adversary, tugging at uniforms and whistling through crevices, a reminder that nature's authority was absolute. In quiet moments between drills, they would share stories of home, letters carried in pocketed folds, and laughter that rang despite fatigue. Hands blistered from ropes and axes were met with small, patient nods of encouragement, an unspoken bond formed in shared endurance. Evenings brought a fleeting warmth as the sun dipped behind peaks, painting granite walls in shades of fire and shadow. In these hours, exhaustion was softened by camaraderie, by the simple act of surviving together. Each soldier was not just a cog in a regiment, but a human being wrestling with altitude, cold, and fear. And yet, in every careful step, in every labored breath, they prepared unknowingly for feats that would demand more than skill or strength, feats that would reveal the quiet heroism hidden in the daily, arduous rhythm of life beneath the skyscraping Alps. The Alps themselves were an omnipresent force, shaping the rhythm of life and war alike. Steep ridges tore the horizon into jagged teeth, cliffs dropping into shadowed valleys that seemed to swallow sound. Rocks, slick with ice or softened by summer melt, shifted beneath the Alpini's careful boots, reminding them that the mountains did not forgive mistakes. Yet within this peril lay opportunity. Hidden ledges offered cover from enemy eyes, narrow passes could funnel advancing forces into predictable paths, and frozen streams might be crossed where less daring men would falter. The scent of pine and wet stone filled the air, mingling with the crisp chill that bit at exposed skin, creating an environment simultaneously beautiful and merciless. Echoes of distant avalanches reminded soldiers that their playground was also a judge, impartial and indifferent. To the Austrian officers, these heights were obstacles to the Alpini. They were partners in strategy, companions whose every slope demanded respect. Traversing these ridges required more than physical skill. It demanded patience, attention, and a sense of the mountain's hidden moods. Even a whisper of wind or a shift in light could signal danger or opportunity. In learning to move with the mountains rather than against them, the Alpini began to turn what seemed a disadvantage into their most formidable ally. And as they pressed onward along these silent giants, viewers are invited to feel both awe and apprehension, understanding that every step would test not just body, but spirit. The Austrian command, perched in ornate offices far below the peaks, believed the war in the mountains would be as predictable as any textbook maneuver. Maps sprawled across polished tables, red and blue markers tracing lines of assumed dominance. Yet each line ignored the unforgiving reality of altitude, ice, and wind. Officers spoke with certainty, their voices echoing through vaulted ceilings, confident that the Alpini's presence was little more than a ceremonial inconvenience. Patrol reports were skimmed, reconnaissance dismissed, and every risk underestimated. Horses slipped on hidden slopes, supply lines groaned under weight they had not anticipated. Orders cascaded downward with arrogant simplicity, as if a drawn line could command the very rocks to yield. Their miscalculations were subtle, at first a delayed advance here, a faltering unit there, but they rippled outward like cracks forming in stone. Soldiers on the ground noticed inconsistencies too late, the gap between expectation and reality widening with every icy pass traversed. The Austrians' hubris, blind to nuance and human ingenuity, became a quiet danger that would eventually undermine them. Even as they plotted, the mountains whispered their impartial judgment, indifferent to ambition, unyielding to pride. Viewers sense a tension between authority and terrain, a moral curiosity that lingers. How could so much experience fail to account for the unpredictable poetry of human and natural forces? The stage was set for misjudgments to collide with resilience, leaving the next act poised on the knife edge of anticipation. Far above the valleys, the Alpini officers worked in near silence, their strategies etched in careful observation rather than shouted command. Every reconnaissance mission, every whispered report from scouts moving along narrow ledges was absorbed and weighed with precision. Plans were not rushed but folded into the rhythm of the mountains themselves, timing, wind direction, and snow conditions all measured as part of a meticulous calculation. Small groups were tested on stealthy climbs, the officers noting endurance, balance, and courage with keen eyes. Ingenious methods of signaling and coordination were devised. Improvised flags mirrored reflections of sunlight, subtle sounds bouncing across ridges, all ensuring that knowledge flowed without alerting the enemy. Supplies were cached at strategic points, anticipating obstacles that a less experienced army might overlook. The Alpini learned to think like the peaks, to move quietly and deliberately, as though the mountains themselves whispered counsel. Each officer carried not only maps and compasses, but a profound respect for the human body's limits and the terrain's temperament. There was no boast, no display, only careful calculation and trust in those who had trained beside them, who understood that survival and success would emerge from patience, not arrogance. The stage was now quietly prepared, an unseen tension building beneath snow, stone, and mist, hinting at dramatic action soon to unfold. While viewers sense that intelligence and humility may yet triumph where overconfidence fails, the mountains themselves became both adversary and theater for the unfolding conflict. Supply lines were fragile, moving along narrow trails that clung to cliffs like stubborn ivy. Food, ammunition, and medical care had to be meticulously rationed, often delivered by hand over treacherous ledges or across frozen streams. Avalanches, sudden storms, and hidden crevasses were constant companions, dictating both timing and movement. Yet the Alpini learned to treat these obstacles as instruments of strategy. A sudden blizzard could mask an advance. A narrow pass could funnel enemy forces into predictable positions. High-altitude combat required constant adaptation, rifles adjusted for thinner air, boots broken in to prevent slips, and eyes trained to read subtle shifts in weather and terrain. Even communication was an exercise in ingenuity, with signals carried along valleys, reflections, or the distant clatter of stones timed to convey intent without revealing location. Every soldier's awareness extended beyond the human to the geological, the meteorological, the acoustic. The landscape itself dictated tactics, forcing creativity, resilience, and cooperation to emerge as survival tools. For viewers, the Alps become more than scenery. They are silent instructors, shaping actions and decisions, teaching that mastery of mind as well as body. In the stillness of these peaks, the stakes are made tangible, and the audience feels the pulse of suspense in every careful step. knowing that the upcoming confrontations will test the limits of both courage and strategy. The night was a velvet shroud, wrapping the mountains in near total darkness, pierced only by pale moonlight reflecting off icy ridges. The Alpini moved with careful deliberation, boots silent against frost-crusted rock, breath shallow and measured to avoid alerting unseen observers. Each step demanded concentration, muscles tensed against slips, fingers gripping rope and ice with a quiet ferocity born of training and necessity. Wind whispered through crevices, carrying both danger and concealment, masking the faintest sound of movement. Occasionally, a small stone would shift underfoot, its muted clatter swallowed by the vast emptiness, and every soldier's heart leapt, only to settle again in disciplined stillness. In these hours, courage was measured not in bold gestures, but in patience and restraint, an unspoken agreement among men who understood that discovery by the enemy meant disaster. Shadows stretched long and strange across the slopes, turning ordinary rocks into looming silhouettes, yet the soldiers pressed onward, guided by instinct, experience, and the quiet camaraderie of shared danger. The mountains themselves seemed to test them, presenting unexpected ledges, slick ice, and near-vertical faces. Each challenge met with tense calm and unwavering resolve. Viewers feel the breathless suspense in every careful movement, the intimate pulse of stealth, and the growing admiration for a courage so quiet it almost escapes notice, leaving the mind to wonder. Who else could master the dark and the cold with such measured bravery? Faces emerge from the fog like fragments of memory, each etched with fatigue, determination, and unspoken stories. Eyes reflected candle-bright glimmers of fear, yet also a stubborn resolve to continue. Soldiers whispered reassurances, hands clasping shoulders in fleeting contact, grounding each other in a fragile human connection. Letters from home, scratches of names carved into wood, or shared memories became talismans against isolation, small anchors in the vast, indifferent expanse of stone and snow. One young soldier's lips trembled as he recalled the warmth of his mother's kitchen. Another inhaled deeply, drawing courage from the memory of a brother's steady gaze. Breath misted in the cold air, mingling with fog and rising like smoke from unseen fires below. Each step forward was a negotiation with fear, the mind balancing between panic and perseverance. Yet through exhaustion and anxiety, a quiet rhythm emerged. Step, hold, glance, move. In that rhythm, humanity persisted, resilient and profound. These were not nameless soldiers of history, they were sons, brothers, friends, all grappling with the vulnerability imposed by altitude, darkness, and war. As the fog shifted and dispersed across ridges, faces became visible to one another in fleeting clarity, and the audience glimpses the fragile, enduring spirit that allows men to endure extremes. The moment offers a pause, a reflective breath in the ascent, hinting at the extraordinary feats that patience and human endurance will soon make possible. Dawn's first light brushed jagged peaks, revealing the Alpini's labor etched into the mountainside. The enemy, accustomed to predictable routines and underestimated tenacity, awoke to empty positions and silent, strategically secured ledges. The initial tactical victories were subtle yet profound. Supply caches discovered, observation points occupied, and paths once thought inaccessible now under Alpine control. Each success was measured not in fanfare but in precision and unexpected foothold here, a carefully maintained silence there. The soldiers' exhaustion was tempered by quiet satisfaction, a recognition that skill and resilience had translated into tangible advantage. Mist still curled around the ridges, lending a surreal softness to the hard-won landscape, while the Austrians scrambled to understand how such small, underestimated men had infiltrated their defenses. The mountains, once perceived as obstacles, had become instruments of strategy, allies that the Alpini had learned to read and respect. The contrast between expectation and reality was striking. The supposed weaklings were the ones now shaping the flow of battle, while the confident enemy reeled under surprise. For the audience, there is both awe and gratification, a narrative reward for patience, observation, and emotional investment. Peaks once feared now bore witness to human ingenuity, resilience, and the quiet triumph of those who had dared to ascend against every doubt and shadow, setting the stage for the next wave of daring action yet to come. Confusion rippled through the Austrian command as reports arrived of positions lost, observation posts silently occupied, and supply lines mysteriously disrupted. Generals, accustomed to orderly advances and predictable enemy behavior, found their calculations unraveling. Maps were spread once again, pens scratching frantic notations, yet each countermeasure seemed too little, too late. Troop movements were ordered and reordered, yet the peaks themselves resisted predictability, guiding and hiding the Alpini in ways the Austrians could not anticipate. There was a subtle irony in the air. Viewers perceived the full scope of the Alpini's strategy, while the enemy struggles in blind reaction. Soldiers scurried along icy ledges, signaling, repositioning, retreating, each step part of a larger rhythm invisible to the opposing eyes. Avalanche-prone slopes, hidden gullies, and frozen outcrops became both obstacles and allies, revealing the futility of relying solely on textbook tactics. The general's shock was matched by the soldiers' quiet triumph. Their underestimation had become a vulnerability. Even as commands echoed through distant barracks, the audience feels the tension of a strategic chess game where one side knows far more than the other. Each Austrian misstep heightens anticipation, while the Alpini, patient and precise, continue to reshape the battlefield in silence. The mountains themselves, impartial and eternal, seem to watch, rewarding intuition and punishing hubris, setting a stage where human ingenuity clashes subtly but decisively with authority blinded by certainty. Frost clung to every surface as the Alpini ascended, each step a negotiation with gravity and bone-deep cold. Fingers numb, faces wind-bitten, they moved with a rhythm that balanced exhaustion and concentration. Breath rose in misted clouds, mingling with the icy air, and each inhalation carried the faint sting of frostbite waiting in the shadows. Rocks shifted beneath boots. Ice threatened to betray every carefully placed foothold, yet the men persisted, testing their bodies against limits few had imagined. In moments of near collapse, camaraderie became a lifeline. A hand grasping another's sleeve, a whispered encouragement, the shared acknowledgement that survival depended as much on trust as on strength. Even in silence, the mountains communicated subtle shifts in snow, the echo of distant rock slides. The change in wind's tonal signals that demanded acute awareness and patience. Every soldier carried more than gear, they bore the weight of discipline, courage, and an intimate knowledge of their fragile human endurance. Viewers feel the cold seeping through the narrative, yet simultaneously the warmth of moral courage. The quiet heroism that emerges when ordinary men confront extraordinary conditions. This is a pause not just of rest, but of reflection. The audience witnesses endurance tested at its outer edge, a testament to the human spirit quietly defying the elements while preparing for the challenges that lie ahead. Small, incremental victories began to ripple across the mountainside, subtle yet transformative. A carefully secured ridge allowed a small unit to observe enemy movements without being seen. A hidden path cleared enabled supplies to flow where none had before. These actions, seemingly minor, reverberated through morale, emboldening soldiers and sowing uncertainty among the Austrians. Each Alpini success, though quiet and often invisible to command, demonstrated the power of ingenuity and meticulous preparation. The mountains themselves became instruments of strategy, amplifying the impact of decisions measured in inches and minutes. Soldiers' confidence grew in tandem with their territorial gains, and viewers sensed the cumulative effect. Small, deliberate actions reshaping the course of battle. Even the harshest peaks, once barriers, now functioned as allies in the careful choreography of movement and concealment. The contrast between expectation and reality deepened. Those once dismissed as weak or inexperienced now dictated pace and positioning, subtly but decisively. There was satisfaction in the methodical nature of triumph, a reflective awe at human creativity navigating unforgiving terrain. As the narrative pauses here, the audience absorbs the full weight of measured success, anticipating the next escalation, aware that every small victory has laid the groundwork for the dramatic outcomes yet to unfold. Every peak the Austrians deemed unreachable became a stage for Alpini ingenuity. Routes that had seemed impossible were reconceived through careful observation, incremental testing, and audacious planning. Soldiers moved in small, disciplined units, navigating jagged ridges, hidden gullies, and ice-slicked cliffs with a precision born of countless hours of training. Improvised anchors, hidden footholds, and rope techniques transformed vertical stone into pathways. Timing was everything. A gust of wind or a fleeting shift in light could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. Observation points once thought secure by the enemy were silently occupied, their defenders unaware of intrusions until too late. Every movement blended calculation with courage, every decision balanced risk and opportunity. The mountains, indifferent and eternal, provided both challenge and guidance, forcing soldiers to read subtle cues in snow, rock, and shadow. In doing so, the Alpini demonstrated a tactical mastery that defied conventional military thinking, reshaping the battlefield not through brute force, but through adaptation and foresight. For viewers, the effect is electrifying. The intellectual pleasure of seeing skill, patience, and daring combine into action that turns theory into tangible conquest, leaving one in awe of what disciplined human minds and bodies can achieve in harmony with nature's most formidable obstacles. At the summit, faces glistened with frost and sweat, smiles tempered by exhaustion, eyes reflecting both relief and wonder. Men who had begun the ascent in the quiet fear of night now stood in the thin air, breaths shallow but steady, hearts swelling with accomplishment. Stories emerged quietly. A soldier recalling a father's words of courage, another remembering a fallen comrade whose sacrifice had paved the way, a few simply exhaling relief after hours of near-impossible climbs. The physical achievement intertwined with deeply human moments, a tapestry of perseverance, sorrow, and triumph. Each soldier carried not only gear but memories, emotions, and the collective weight of the unit's journey. Flags were not raised in fanfare, footprints in snow, and careful placement of equipment marked the summit like quiet testaments. The wind, harsh yet cleansing, carried whispers of accomplishment across ridges, mingling with fog and sunlight to create an almost sacred stillness. Viewers sense both closure and continuity, understanding that triumph at the summit is never solitary. It is a story of human endurance, connection, and resilience. In these moments, the mountains cease to be obstacles and become witnesses, silent chroniclers of courage, ensuring that every triumph is felt as both physical conquest and emotional victory. Far below, the Austrian generals absorbed the news with reluctant disbelief. Reports of occupied heights, disrupted lines, and unforeseen incursions forced them to confront a bitter truth. Their assumptions had been catastrophically flawed. Their maps and strategies, once trusted instruments of command, now appeared inadequate against soldiers who had moved with intelligence, patience, and adaptability. The contrast between expectation and reality was unforgiving, each miscalculation a silent indictment of overconfidence. Officers murmured, recalculated, and attempted countermeasures, but the momentum had shifted the terrain, and the Alpini's mastery had turned what was meant to be a minor challenge into a strategic nightmare. There was no dramatization needed. The irony was palpable, and viewers, privy to the full story, sense a moral reflection. Hubris meets humility, certainty meets unpredictability, and human judgment is measured against both intellect and terrain. The mountains, indifferent yet instrumental, revealed truths that textbooks could not convey. As the Alpini solidified positions and prepared for what lay ahead, the Austrian realization became both a cautionary tale and a quiet bridge to reflection, underscoring the enduring lesson that underestimation, in war as in life, can have consequences far beyond expectation. The feats of the Alpini left echoes that stretched far beyond the narrow ridges they had conquered. Stories passed down through letters, journals, and whispered accounts carried the memory of their ingenuity and endurance into villages and towns below. Monuments would later honor their courage, yet it was the quiet acts, the careful placement of equipment, the disciplined climbs, the silent victories that became the enduring threads of history. The mountains themselves seem to hold these stories, rocks and snow preserving traces of human perseverance in subtle ways that textbooks could not capture. Generations would come to see not merely soldiers in green hats, but human beings capable of extraordinary adaptation, insight, and bravery. The Alpini's journey became more than a military campaign. It became a testament to the intersection of human will and natural challenge. Observers, historians, and locals alike felt a sense of awe, recognizing that these feats were not measured in battle statistics alone, but in the profound example of resilience and quiet mastery over impossible terrain. Viewers are invited into this reflection, sensing that greatness often hides in measured steps, patient observation, and courage exercised in silence. In contemplating these acts, one appreciates the layers of impact, historical, cultural, and deeply human, that endure long after the last echo of footsteps fades from the mountainside. Beyond the story of peaks and strategy lies a subtler lesson, one in humility and courage. The Alpini demonstrated that true strength does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, measured in careful steps, observation, and respect for forces greater than oneself. Each climb, each tactical maneuver carried not just physical risk, but a moral dimension. Perseverance under adversity, respect for both fellow soldiers and the mountains, and the wisdom to move deliberately rather than arrogantly. These qualities resonate beyond the military context, offering viewers a quiet philosophical reflection. Human achievement is most remarkable when it balances ambition with mindfulness, courage with prudence. The Austrians' overconfidence and the Alpini's patient brilliance present a mirrored lesson in contrasts, underscoring the timeless truth that understanding and preparation can triumph over assumed superiority. Audiences are drawn into contemplation, sensing the moral clarity that arises when patience and intellect meet opportunity. In this pause, the narrative breathes, allowing both the mind and heart to settle, offering satisfaction that extends beyond action, highlighting enduring truths about human capability, resilience, and ethical strength in moments that demand more than muscle. As the sun dips behind distant peaks, light scatters across ridges and valleys, painting stone with warmth and shadow. A gentle wind moves through pine groves and over snowfields, carrying the faint scent of earth, cold rock, and lingering frost. The mountains, now quiet witnesses, seem to exhale after the tumult of conflict, a calm authority returning to the landscape. The Alpini, their work done, move with measured steps along familiar paths, their breaths merging with the whisper of wind and the soft crunch of snow. Even the smallest details, the shimmer of morning frost, the echo of distant streams, the rustle of alpine grass create a sensory calm that invites reflection and closure. Viewers are left in a contemplative space, sensing the full arc of human endeavor, endurance, and ingenuity, yet comforted by the peaceful rhythm of nature reclaiming its domain. This final tableau emphasizes not triumph in spectacle, but the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment harmonized with environment, leaving a sense of emotional completeness. In these lingering moments, the Alps themselves provide a lullaby of history, courage, and reflection, drawing the story to a serene and cinematic conclusion.